Well, good morning, everyone. Glad to see all those happy faces, even though I can only see 6 of them, including my own. Anyway, I'm the PWA Research Chair, and you'll see what I've been doing over the years. And my intention is that I'm going to go through about 4 or 5 different areas of research that I'm involved in. And at the end of each one of them, I'm going to stop so you can ask questions. So there's me. I've been with the PWA since 2003 when Bob Dyer introduced me to what was happening at Schollenberger Park. So I'm not going to read this to you. You can read this yourself. I'll read it to myself. And if I can read this, you'll probably have read it too. So first, I'm going to talk about the tree swallows and bluebirds. I've been doing tree swallow monitoring since approximately 2007. So the global population of tree swallows is about 2.6 million, and 46% of them are in the USA part of the year. They are voracious consumers of all nature of flying insects from the size of a grain of sand at 2 inches long. So this is where they are in the summertime in the green there. And in the wintertime, they head south to border states in Mexico. Tree swallows are cavity nesters. And can you see, I'm assuming you can see my cursor here. This tree has some cavities in it, some holes where the wet limbs have fallen off. This tree is dead. Since I took this picture, this tree has been cut down, which is what happens to all dead trees, because we find them ugly or use them for firewood. But in the natural environment, you'd have all kinds of trees that have cavities for birds to nest in. So there's that cavity I showed you right there. And more cavities. Andy Lacassi got me into this in 2006. He and one other person Andy built about 12 tree swallow houses around 2005, 2004. And as they were putting them up in April or May, tree swallows were fighting for an opportunity to occupy that house. He said he had never seen anything like it. That's because our environment is devoid of habitats for these birds. So by putting up houses, we are providing what we have otherwise destroyed or taken away. Tree swallow house. The features of a good birdhouse are hole size, no bigger than the bird you want to attract. Otherwise, predator birds are going to get in there and get the chicks or eggs. A tree swallow house should not have a perch. The only purpose a perch serves is to allow a predator bird to stand on it and peek inside and grab whoever is in there. So the howl has to have the ability for chicks to escape the nest when they're ready to get out or be fed. The roof should extend over the hole. Adequate ventilation just below the roof so it doesn't get too hot or too cold. And the pole that it's on should be difficult for a predator to climb. So here's a house that we built. Notice the roof extends out. There's no perch. The hole is 1 3/8 inch size, which is just the right size for a tree swallow. There's a view showing you the access door. So when I'm monitoring the houses, I can open this door up and see who's inside. And when we clean it out after they have nested, it's easy to do. Inside, there's a ladder cut into the front of the door so that the chicks can climb out or climb up to the hole to get fed when they are about 13 days old. You can understand if there wasn't a ladder there, it'd be very slick, smooth sides, things that don't happen naturally in nature. So Cheryl Nagu, shown here, and I built 17 houses this late winter, early spring, because Cheryl monitors 50 houses at Rooster Run Golf Course. And those houses were built by Boy Scouts a number of years ago, plywoods that are falling apart. So these 17 houses are going to replace 17 that have fallen apart at Rooster Run. And we're going to be building more this fall. Not to be outdone, there's me too. I tried to get a picture of us together with the houses, but my camera wouldn't do that. Why do we monitor tree swallow houses? Well, to establish which species of birds are occupying them, tree swallows or western bluebird. It may be something else, but in all the years I've been doing this, we've never had any other species of bird occupy them. Andy Lacassi is amazed that we don't have house sparrows occupying them, but we never have. Also, we want to gauge the mortality levels of the chicks that are raised in these. And we do whatever we can to improve their survival rate by, one, providing houses, maintaining them, and monitoring their chicks to help ensure a positive outcome. I'm not one just to stand by and watch chicks die from something that I can prevent. The information we collect is the shape of the nest. Is it a flat nest? How high is it? How deep is the cup? How many feathers are there in and out of the nest? The number of eggs, number of chicks, number of empty seats. You also count the number of eggs laid, the dates that the egg was found, the date that they fledge after 16 to 24 days. If you open up a tree swallow house and you notice that the eggs are pink, they've been laid within the last 4 days. After that, they turn white. This is where the tree swallow houses are. I'm going to assume, I assume a lot, you can see my cursor here. This is the entry to Schollenberger Park right there. It's where the picnic tables are. Now, we used to have 5 tree swallow houses in this area here, but those have been removed. Now we have 2 over here just across the right channel as you walk in. And as you walk down the path towards Adobe Creek Bridge over here, we have 6 houses over here. We used to have a lot more across the river, but those birds over there didn't do well at all. They had a lot of ticks over there, so it wasn't a happy environment for me to enter into. And the chicks got a lot of mite issues over there. So those have been removed. They were moved over here. Point blue is right here. So if you were to continue towards Ellis Creek on this path, the houses are here. We used to have 5, but now we have 10 along here and 1 here. Going into Ellis Creek, if you go to Ellis Creek, you'd park right in this area here. The restroom is right there. We have 5 houses along the road there. And then if you walk into Ellis Creek, over here by the ponds, this is pond A, B, C, and D. But right by pond B here, there's 2 large eucalyptus trees. There are 5 houses here. So how have they done over the, well, since 2007 when I started monitoring? So this bar chart gives you a good idea, but so initially we got about 68% survival. Then it went down until I rather discovered that the chicks were having a mite issue, and I discovered what to do to help them in that respect. And what we do is we use diatomaceous earth in the nest if we find a mite outbreak. And the quicker you catch a mite outbreak, the better you are off, because they multiply like, well, faster than rabbits. And right about here, I started removing nests that had mites in them, replacing the nest with clean grass, putting diatomaceous earth on there, and then the survival rate increased substantially. So last year we had a survival rate of about 80%, which is pretty darn good. I think right down here it shows the actual number, it was 84%. This is in the first nesting. There are 2 nestings. The first one starts around the end of April, and the second one starts around the early part of June. If May is a pleasant month, the chicks will do fine. By pleasant, I mean that if it's cold, that's one thing. The chicks won't have feathers when they're first born for about 12 days. But if it's windy, that's really bad, because if it's cold and windy, insects will not fly. They will stay on the ground. And if insects are not flying, the parents cannot get food to feed their chicks. So the chicks will die of cold exposure and lack of food. So last year we had a lot of trouble with that issue in the first nesting, but it doesn't show here too much. It depends upon the area too. I'll get into that a little bit later. The second nesting, oh, here's a 15-year rate for this. This is the second nesting here. The second nesting, the success rate is less than the first nesting, because in the first nesting, if May isn't too bad, there's going to be a lot of food available, a lot of flying insects, a lot of water, and things should be good. Around the early part of June, it can get very hot. The insect population plummets. It can get very hot, so the survival rate goes down. Also, the tree swallows are not too inclined to have a second nesting. Maybe 60% do. The other 40% decide it's time to have a vacation after having a first nesting. That's what I'm guessing anyway. Or they've decided, you know, the chances of our having a good nesting are not too good, so let's just not have a second nesting. So we're combining the first nesting and second nesting success rate. This is how the bar chart looks. Now this year, since we had all that rain in October, we should have a lot of foliage. If any of you, or some of you, or most of you have been to Tole, you might recall that last year we had no lake at Lake Tole. It was dry. So the success rate of the tree swallows and bluebirds over there was quite bad. But this year we have a lake at Tole. So we should have a lot more insects and a lot better success rate there. Things that can affect the chick's survival: rats, snakes, cats, and raccoons. It seems like our main problem here is snakes, which we never catch going into a nest. I don't know when they enter a nest, but they can crawl or work their way up a pole and get into a nest and consume the chicks. The problem snakes are the gopher snakes. I have never seen one in our area here. We know they're here. And I ask people to be observant about what they see, if anything, when they look at a tree swallow nest. You see anything at all that is perturbing the chicks? No one ever reports anything. But it has to be happening because, especially in the area by Point Blue, a lot of chicks just disappear there, or eggs that were there 1 week are gone the next. And I'm sure it's not people. I'm pretty sure it has to be snakes that are getting into the house. If you don't catch a mite infestation on time, the mites will drain the blood of chicks and they die. Another issue below mites is ants. If a chick dies, you need to remove that chick promptly. Otherwise, the smell of that decomposing chick is going to attract ants, and ants attract more ants. And once they have attacked the dead chick, they'll go after the live ones too. So dead chicks have to be removed. Other things that affect their survival rate, of course, would be hawks and owls, a loss of a parent, a dead chick in the nest. Again, it has to be removed to keep the nest clean. Competition for nest sites from other birds. You can open up a nest to see how things are going, and you find a dead parent in there. You say, what happened here? Quite often, another more alpha tree swallow will enter a house where a parent is sitting on eggs or on chicks, kill that parent, build a nest, their own nest on top of those eggs, and start their own family. It's a brutal dog eat dog, bird kill bird existence out there. Also, if you have too many siblings, And if there isn't enough food in the environment, the chicks are going to die. Also, if there's too many chicks, you don't want to be the bottom chick, because birds above you are going to be defecating on you. And if you are fed, if you are able to survive to the point where you're able to fledge, you might find if you're that chick that your wing feathers are glued together from the fecal matter. And if I catch that, I can take that chick out and just rinse that fecal matter off with water, and it'll just dissolve and that chick can fledge. Of course, if it's too hot, chicks are not going to do well. Number of insects, food, and the environment, of course, that's important. If it's too cold, the insects aren't going to fly. And the determination of the parents to succeed. Some parents are determined to take care of their chicks, and others are kind of like pretty lackadaisical about it, just like human beings. Oops, what did I do there? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. So how does a cavity-dwelling bird keep its nest clean? Well, here. This is a titmouse, not the same size as a tree swallow, but here it is taking a fecal sac out of the nest and taking off with it and dropping it some distance away from the nest. And the chicks will deposit or eliminate fecal sacs for about the first 10, 12 days of their existence. After that, it all comes out. No fecal sacs anymore. And once the chicks get older, they're defecating just too much for the parents to keep up with it. But some parents are very determined and successful at keeping the nest clean, and others, they really don't care too much. So the tree swallow nesting season is soon going to be in progress. And I try hard to get images of birds in flight, but if you've ever tried that before or tried to watch a bird in flight with binoculars, you know it's pretty darn hard. However, if you watch the birds as they are coming and going from their houses, it's a lot easier. So I was determined this one day in April 2019 to shoot some birds in flight by their houses, but I got something other than what I expected. So here's a female waiting for the male to come in. Here he comes. And that's the end of it. I think it took all of about 2 or 3 seconds, but I'm very happy with those images. I couldn't have done better if I tried. And I wasn't even just expecting this. And once eggs are laid, it takes about 13 days of incubation for the eggs to hatch. Here's a picture I took in 2007, day 1 chicks. I have a better camera since then, but now I'm reluctant to disturb a nest that has 1-day chicks in it. It'd have to be a rather warm, calm day for me to do that, and I suppose I should do it to get a better image than this, but I also don't want to have any negative effect upon the chicks' survival rate by my disturbing them. So these are day 1 chicks. Day 2 chicks. 3, you can see the feathers below the skin surface. Day 4. 5. If you can see my cursor, you can see the feather quills are starting to stick out right there at 5 to 6 days. And the eyes are opening now too. Day 7, the quills are day 8 actually. Quills are growing fast. Day 9, the feathers are starting to emerge like a little paintbrush from the quill. Day 10, 11, 12, and at day 12 and 13, you really shouldn't take the chicks out of the nest because they're able to escape. They aren't going to fly away, but They are naturally inclined to try to get away from a predator. So if there's tall grass or anything around, they'll jump to the ground, they'll fall to the ground, and they'll look around for about 5 seconds, and then they're gone. They take off in the grass. And once they're running into the grass, you aren't going to find them. They just disappear. And of course, if you start walking around trying to find them, you'll probably step on them. So the moral is, don't take chicks out of the nest after about day 12 or 13. There's a day 14 chick though, just so I can show you the feathers. And after that, didn't take them out again. But here are parents feeding a chick looking out of a house. At the end of each season, we clean the houses in preparation for the next season. We scrape them out, spray them with light bleach, scrub them with a nylon brush, spray again with clear water, and leave the door open a bit so it can air out. In the spring, before the swallows arrive, we check each house for wasps and evict any we find. One thing more I've added since I did this a few years ago is I bring a battery-operated leaf blower out. And after I've done some initial scraping around the house, I take the leaf blower and blow the house out. And that gets rid of the dust, which otherwise I'd have very near my face if I was dusting it out with a paintbrush. So the leaf blower does an excellent job of helping you to clean the house out. I'm going to cough a moment. Excuse me. So here's Deb Shepherd at Tole just a week ago or so. She's checking for wasps. So what might she find if she opens a house? Well, she might find a bunch of wasps here. And this is a little closer up view of them. There's another view of other wasps. And you look at these and say, oh my God, those are dangerous. I don't want to get stung by them. And initially I thought, and others did too, that anything that's yellow and black is a yellow jacket. And I've been bitten by yellow jackets. Maybe you have too, and it's not something you want to encourage to happen again. But these are not yellow jackets. These are paper wasps. And I don't have a picture of a paper wasp and a yellow jacket side by side to show you. But the paper wasp has a broader thorax than the yellow jacket, which has a very narrow thorax between the abdomen and the thorax area. Also, the yellow jackets do not nest above ground. Paper wasps do. Yellow jackets nest below ground. In any case, I was killing these creatures until I found out from Cheryl Nadeau, who did some research, that these were not yellow jackets, but paper wasps, and they are pretty much harmless. The only time that they are going to be aggressive is in the fall time, like around October and November, when they are seeking shelter for the winter time. Then you don't want to bother with them. But after that, like right about now, I can just take a paintbrush and shoo them off, and they just fly away, and it's the end of it. Amazing. Here's Cheryl Nadeau at a house cleaning in 2015. She's dressing in all this gear because there are ticks in the environment. Not so many as there were, because the water recycling facility does a very good job of mowing the grass in the area over by the observation ponds where there used to be, but for having the ground mowed, a lot of ticks. One time going out there, I counted collecting 85 ticks on me. But I go with someone else who's watching me, and I'm watching them, and we have all gear on like this, and not fun. And that's the end of the tree swallow segment. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Len, I'm interested in how the parents clean the nest, and you said that they take away the fecal sacs. Do they also remove the shell? I didn't see any evidence of shell in that day one picture.
They must consume it because it just disappears. I understand that they need to get that calcium back in their system. So I don't find shells, either outside of the nest or inside the nest. The parents must be consuming it.
And the other question is, are pretty much all of those boxes being used?
I'd say 95%. Sometimes all of them are, sometimes one or two aren't, inexplicably. Like, hey, I've made this house for you. Someone move in, please. Anybody else?
Where does the fecal sac come from?
They come from the anus of the bird.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Okay. And then you talked about first and second season for fledgling things. Are they within the same year, or are we talking about year after year? I wasn't quite sure how you're using those words.
Well, the first nesting is from, let's say, the end of April until the first part of June. Then if they're going to have a second nesting, that'll start around the end of May, early June, and go until the first week of August.
So in that case, so the swallows can have 2 sets of babies per year?
Yes.
Okay, Len, this is probably a tough question, but do you know if the same bird comes back to its nest, or is it a different bird that comes to use that nest for the second nesting?
Hard to know. All you can tell about some tree swallows, like there's one by Adobe Creek Bridge. When they see you coming, they'll sit in the tree and watch you as you enter that house. And for the last 3 years, I've noticed the same behavior at that house. So I'm assuming it's the same birds. But unless they exhibit something like that, I don't know. Other tree swallows, they see you coming, they disappear. Others, if they see you coming, they start circling around your head, peeping, maybe dive bombing you, trying to intimidate you that they're going to hurt you. Maybe they'll tick your hat a little bit, but that's all. So some are aggressive and some are very unaggressive. It varies. So I don't know. I'd really like to know that. Now, there are a pair of bluebirds over at Tole, at one of the houses there, that are very protective of their chicks. When they see you coming, they'll back off about 6 feet away from the nest and sit on the barbed wire fence and just watch you. No one else does that, no other birds. So it has to be the same pair there. And I'm really hoping they come back this year because they're really entertaining and they present fantastic photo opportunities too. Anything else?
Len, this is Deb.
Yes.
Good morning. I'm a little incognito here. You talk about the tree swallows, and obviously I work with you in this. And it's I don't know if everybody knows, but the cavity nesters are also bluebirds. So it's bluebirds and tree swallows. So it's a pretty neat thing.
Yes, bluebirds are mostly over at Lake Tole area, and I don't talk about them too much because if I'm talking to the public, they're not going to see, for the most part, bluebirds in the Schollenberger or Ellis Creek area. Those are all tree swallows, except right along Ellis Creek, in Ellis Creek, where you park your car. There's 5 houses to the left as you head towards the water recycling facility headquarters. 2 bluebirds occupy 2 of those houses. Now, it's kind of interesting because you might have the first nesting, you might have in one particular house, tree swallows occupying it, and the second nesting, bluebirds move into it, or vice versa. Now, how they decide who's going to have the first and second nesting, I don't know, and they aren't talking to me. But every year it's something new and entertaining and interesting and informative about what nature can present you. Anything else?
Is there any point to people putting up houses in their own yards?
Most certainly, because we have very little habitat because we removed it. Yes, by all means, if you find a particular type of bird that's found in your environment there, build a house that is appropriate for that bird. Most of the birds we have here, the tree swallow house seems to work just fine. I have beaver wrens here, titmice, and chickadees, and they use my tree swallow houses. I don't have western bluebirds or tree swallow houses here. I don't have an open field area, but yes, by all means, put a house up. But
Hey,
don't
Len, this is Suzanne.
put a
And
bird up.
hi there. I was wondering about Wickersham Park because I see bluebirds there. And just seems like that is open enough that it might warrant to have a bluebird house or two.
I'm sure if someone wants to put one up there, they can. But now I'm monitoring 60 houses. I'm at my limit. But if you, Wickersham, where's that at?
Oh, it's down by me. It's on between 5th and 4th Street and
over there.
G and F. Yeah,
Well,
it's pretty close.
yeah, I think I'd be careful about putting up a birdhouse where the public is walking right by it.
Okay,
People might have an inclination to open it up
right.
or sit right in front of it waiting for something to happen, which is going to keep the birds away. So
Okay.
I'd probably be inclined not to put something in an area that is that public. At Schoenberger and Ellis Creek, the tree swallow houses are at some distance away from where the public are walking. Anything else?
Yes, Len, it's John. And have you considered the possibility of banding the young birds early on? So just like Point Blue does for when they do their bird research, it's for finding out who's returning and doing counts that way.
Some people from Tulane University were banding birds and putting on tracking devices on them around 2009 at Schoenberger Park. The banding part, no problem, but they were putting these tracking devices around their backs. And I don't think the birds survived the experience. They didn't come back in next year. And in one case, one of the birds had this tracking device on it, and other tree swallows attacked it like there was something wrong with it. They were trying to drive that bird away from its house. And it was, we decided, the board that is, that we don't want them putting these devices on our birds. Banding, no one's banding them. I'm not banding them. If someone else wants to get involved in that, let's have a discussion about it. I think we're done with this. I need to move into another subject. Okay? Heron Egret Monitoring. Well, I do this and my partner is Linda Shepard, and we do it for CGRC, Cypress Grove Research Center. CGRC has been monitoring, I don't know how many, maybe 50 heron egret sites in the Bay Area since about 1995. So we have one heron egret colony over at Ellis Creek right now, but 4 or 5 years ago, we had 3 different locations where there were heron egret colonies. One of those trees got swept into the Petaluma River about 4 years ago in December, and another one was removed when they widened Highway 101. So we're down to 1 right now. Having 3 in our environment and trying to monitor all 3 was really very difficult for Bob Dyer and I and Dennis Buss. So I'm down to 1 now, and I'm happy with 1. So let me get into that one. So here's an aerial view of Ellis Creek. If you can see my arrow, this is the parking area at Ellis Creek. This is pond A, B, C, D, A, B, C, and D. Then there's this tree line here. And on the opposite side of it is the oxidation ponds, which the public does not have access to. The wind direction is from the west here. So the birds build their nests on the opposite side, so they are not impacted so much by the wind. The bad part of that is, since you can't go over there to see them, you're over here, you are not going to see the nest. You will hear the birds in May and June over there clattering and causing all kinds of commotion as they're trying to get attention to be fed. So I'm going to take another view here. Okay, now we're on the opposite side. Here's the tree line here, and this is the tree the colony is in. And Linda and I set up our observation point right here on this road. We have access, we have permission from the water recycling facility people to enter this periodically for the purpose of monitoring this colony for the Cypress Grove Research Center. Here's the colony tree as we view it from where we set up. Here's our very primitive setup position. I'm being funny about primitive. It's very comfortable, as you can see. Let's set up a table. We have a big map of the tree. Linda and I each have similar telescopes. This one belongs to Andy Lacasse, and this is mine, but they're the same telescopes. We share the same view. So if we're talking about a particular view of a tree, we both have the same field of view, so we aren't confused about one having a higher power scope than the other. And the sun is from the area behind us, and it's really necessary, if it's a warm day, to have this canopy tent up there to keep us cool. Otherwise, it gets really uncomfortable. So here's the birds. The herons arrive first in early March, about 30 days from now, and we'll get about 8, 10, 12 herons show up. They'll look around like, okay, let's talk about who's going to nest where, or do we want to be here? And after a while, you'll find them occupying old nests or building new nests. I keep a very large picture, like about 3 feet by 3 feet, of the colony tree. And as we observe nests, we will put a little stickum on our map of the site. The blue are the great blue herons. The white are the egrets, great egrets. And the red are cormorants, double-crested cormorants. I keep hoping we'll have a snowy egret, but we had one temporarily last year, stick around for 2 weeks like they wanted to nest, but decided not to. But we used to have a colony of 45 snowy egrets over by the Petaluma River, but that was the nest that got swept into the river during rain about 5 years ago. Excuse me a moment. So what information do we gather? Well, first of all, we want to know what species it is: great blue heron, great egret, or double-crested cormorant. And one year we had a great horned owl nest up in that tree. And you'd think the herons and egrets wouldn't want to be near a great horned owl, but they were all apparently all cozy, being in a rather close proximity. I'm sure the great horned owl was very happy about that. He couldn't find food, there'd be someone nearby to grab. We want to know, is the nest active or not? Now, what is an active nest? If we see a pair of herons or egrets and they appear to be making some motions with their bills, they are rolling eggs so that they are not in one position all the time. Or if you see them lying on the nest, they aren't lying to rest, they're incubating eggs. If you see two herons or egrets passing a branch to each other, that's a mating trait. They're sharing something, like maybe giving him or her a ring to wear. Or if they're necking, I mean that. They're putting their necks together and showing how much affection they have for each other. Or if they're clicking bills together, that's another nesting behavior. It means we're a pair. Once we see chicks, you might see a little bitty puffball, like a little cotton ball, stick up from the nest one day and say, hey, there's a chick. Generally, that happens around the 10th of May or so. And that would be a stage 2 chick. Stage 1 is egg. Stage 2, when you first see a chick, and stage 3, they get bigger and bigger. Stage 4. Stage 5 is when they're they'll be up there flapping their wings and getting ready to take off. So we want to check, determine how many chicks there are, and then watch those chicks each time we go out there. Count the chicks. Have they decreased in number? Has one gotten kicked out of the nest? Has one died? Until we see them actually flapping their wings and ready to fledge, we'll assume they're going to succeed and fly away. So these are the great blue herons. This is our success chart. And it goes up and down. These are the number of great blue heron chicks by year. Now, last year was a very, very dry year, and we had about 15 chicks that fledged from that colony. The great egrets. We had a lot of them, as you can see, in 2010, but the numbers have plummeted since then. And in 2019, 20, and last year, we had just a few. I don't know why they're not too happy there now, where they are nesting. If any of you have been up to the Santa Rosa Heron Egret site on 9th Street, that place is just booming with heron egrets and cattle egrets, night herons up there around late April, May, early June. If you haven't been there, you want to go there this year. You aren't sure where to find it? Talk to me after we're finished here. Number of double-crested cormorants, that has gone up. And last year, the last 2 years, we haven't been counting them so well. We've been too busy counting the herons and egrets. We're going to do a better job about that this year. In 2020, we didn't have much access to that site because everyone was in lockdown. So our viewing of the heron egret site was limited to the few times I was able to get there before the lockdown and then after the lockdown. But I know I missed a lot. So the total number of chicks, including egrets, herons, cormorants, the numbers have been pretty high the last 3 years, but mostly it's cormorants that are nesting there successfully. That's the end of the Heron Egret monitoring section. Any questions?
How do you count the chicks? Aren't they too high up in the tree, or?
We have spotting scopes.
Oh yeah, okay.
Without the spotting scope, you could see them in binoculars, but you couldn't share the view with someone else, Linda Shepard in this case, who's also helping you monitor and confirming what you see. I mean, every chick isn't going to stand up and say, hey, count me. You might have one pop up now, then someone else pop up later to say, is that the same bird or are there two there? Yeah. Well, I saw two at one time for a moment. For 2 seconds, I saw two, so there must be two there. So it's a very interesting collaboration with myself and Linda Shepard, my partner out there, and it's fun.
Hey, Len, this is John. And have you seen, looking for behaviors of other birds, whether that they're under attack by the hawks or is it the mute swans that may be in the water area when they're all looking for food? So have you seen any behaviors of disturbance by other species of birds, whether it be hawks or the mute swans or Canadian geese?
The mute swans bother the Canadian geese. I made a mistake. They are not Canadian. The Canada geese the most. The Canada geese belong here. The mute swans are introductions, and they're very territorial. In their nesting season, the mute swans don't want anyone else to be in that pond with them, especially Canada geese. The mute swans don't seem to bother the pied-billed grebes or other birds or other ducks, but the Canada geese, they really see them as competitors. Insofar as predators for the colony, it's the eagle. If there's an eagle in the area, that's always bad news. That the value of the property plummets when the eagle moves in. And it's the red-tailed hawk, red-shouldered hawk, those can predate the herons and egrets, but only when the chicks are small. Once these chicks get bigger, they have rather dangerous bills, and a hawk is not going to come too close to a chick because he'll get speared.
Len, this is Jean. Is there a colony, or do the black-crested night herons nest in Ellis Creek, or do they nest someplace else?
I didn't follow you.
The black-crested night herons,
Oh,
where are they nesting?
I don't know if they nest here or not, but we know we find a lot of them. Like, I think our last bird count over at Ellis Creek, we had like 45 black crowned night herons over there. I don't know if they nest there or not. We know they nest up at 9th Street in Santa Rosa, but where else, I don't know. Linda, have you seen any nested herons? Anyway, they do not nest in the trees in our area. Anything else? Okay, next subject. Bird surveys. We start at 7 a.m. in the morning, once a month. We have two locations that we survey, Ellis Creek and Schollenberger. We started these surveys around 2005. And I've been doing the compilation since then. And the coordination too. It's something I enjoy doing. So here it is, 7 a.m. We used to just do Schollenberger because Ellis Creek was not in existence at that time or open to the public. But around 2010, Ellis Creek opened up and we said, we are not going to do two surveys each month. It's just too much of a workload. So we alternate doing a bird survey at either Schollenberger or Ellis Creek each month. In this picture here, it's 7 a.m. approximately, and we have a nice sunrise coming up here, and the team is assembling. Here's another sunrise image. This was just last month, the sun coming through the trees at Ellis Creek. It's a beautiful time of day to be out there. And this is when you're going to see your birds too. If you go out looking for them later in the day, they aren't going to be seen in the abundance as they are early in the day. Maybe that's when they have to find breakfast to satisfy their cravings for food, having had nothing to eat all night. So here's a bird survey team. Gee whiz, this picture is 4 years old. And anyone can join it. You don't have to be an expert birder. We always welcome expert birders because expert birders are going to be able to identify birds you either haven't seen or don't know who they are. But everyone has to start at some point to learn what the birds are, and we welcome any newbies who at any time. This is a very welcoming, friendly group to be with. So if you're interested, let me know. I'll add you to the list of people who want to receive communications from me, and it tells you when the survey is going to be, and you can come or not come. You are under no obligations at all. Just here's when it's going to be, and I also send a recording sheet that's appropriate to that month and location of what we have seen in the last 5 years. So you have a good idea of what we're probably going to see there. And let me know if you have any questions or want to be added to my list. So we have approximately 231 species of birds that have been seen in our wetland over the years. You're never going to see 231 birds at one time. I think the most we've seen in one survey has been maybe 87 or so. And like I said, since 2005, we've had monthly surveys at Schollenberger, and since 2010, they've been at Ellis Creek too. Once the survey is done, my recording sheet reflects birds that we have seen in the last 5 years. So I send notifications out to the volunteers. Here's birds that we did not see at this survey. You have the next 2 days to get out to this location to see if you can find some of the missed birds. And if you find them, report them to me, and I add them to my birds that were seen for that survey. Deb Shepard currently is the eBird compiler. I sent her a list of the birds that we're seeing on the original survey, and she enters that information to eBird so that birders nationwide can see what we have seen there. And other, I'll call them professional birders, also communicate what they have seen wherever they go to eBird. So as I said, participation in the bird surveys is an excellent way to improve or learn your bird IDing skills and socialize and help the PWA with this task. Let me know if you're interested. End of bird survey. Any questions? Next, barn owl, house monitoring maintenance. Now this picture here is of barn owls at Tole 12 years ago. Since then, we have owl houses at mostly Ellis Creek and Schollenberger. Andy Lacassi there, shown at the bottom facing us, built 2 owl houses at Schollenberger, which were quickly occupied. And then he put one over at Ellis Creek too. Then the water recycling facility was contacted by someone who was building them for a price, and they put up like 16 more owl houses at Ellis Creek. Now, why they put in so many, I don't know, because we don't have that many barn owls. But in any way, they got talked into it. And we wondered what was going on in those houses. Then about 4 years ago, the water recycling facility was contacted by the people that put them up and said, hey, you know, those houses are full of owls, and they have, there's going to be an accumulation in debris in them, which needs to be removed. And I think they wanted maybe $150 a house to clean them out. So the water recycling people contacted me and said, would you be interested in cleaning these houses? We're like, yes, because we want to know what is in them too. And here's our opportunity to serve the water recycling facility people, which endears us to them, so they're more likely to give us access to places where we otherwise wouldn't have been able to go. We clean the houses out in October and weigh the contents of each house. From these, we collect all the owl pellets. Last year, we got over 600 owl pellets out of these 16 or 17 houses. We use them in our school program. And in one of the houses, we keep all of the debris and dissect it. So here is John up on the top there, about to enter clean an owl house out. We also have one in a eucalyptus tree by Pond B. Now this picture here was taken of this house before John installed a camcorder in it. And for the last 2 years, we've been able to see through the camcorder what's been going on in that house. So not only do we find the debris, but we know how many chicks were raised to accumulate that debris. So here's how the house looks now with another house built on top of it to house the camcorder. Now this year, we initially had 2 owls in there, but we're down. I think the owls have decided they don't want to live in this particular house. I mean, there's 15 other houses they could occupy. I think we've been lucky so far that they're occupying a house that we have a camcorder in, but I'm thinking they probably aren't going to accommodate us this year. We will see. So that's me on the bottom there. And I opened the door up. And when I opened the door up to clean the house out, I noticed the owl's butt was facing me. So I communicated to people of it, hey, there's an owl up here. I said, Andy, get down below. I think he's gonna fly out. So you would get your camera ready. So Andy got down there. And then owls coming out through there. And here Andy catches the owl flying out. That was a lot of fun. I wish I was on the ground taking the pictures.
Beautiful.
So last year, recognizing that we're probably going to have owls flying out if we're lucky, I prepared for that to happen and got a lot of images of owls flying out of the house. And one of the houses, the one in the eucalyptus tree, we take the total debris, around 10 pounds of it, and dissect it to take all of the bones out of it. We're looking for the skulls and mandibles. We can identify the particular species of creatures that were consumed by the owls. So that's me and Nora and Cheryl and Pam Williams here. And this is how some of the debris would look like. And here you have skulls and all kinds of bones. But here's just lower mandibles of voles. So going back to 2014, when we started dissecting or cleaning out the houses, that is the house in the eucalyptus tree. In 2014, we had a 5-pound nest and a 3-pound nest and 9-pound nest, 9-pound nest. But chicks, we didn't know what was raised in them because we didn't have a camcorder. But starting in 2020, we knew we had 5 chicks, and last year we had 4 chicks. So what we are finding in them now has more meaning because we know who consumed it. So last year, we had about 800 creatures that we identified that the owls had consumed. And we know by category what they were too. So it's all very interesting. If you're interested in getting involved in the dissection of the nest next year, let me know. Okay. So here's the owls last year. Well, January 10th. Well, this year. But since January 10, when I took this picture, and we either have one owl or no owls, so I don't think we're going to be successful this year. Last year in June, these are 2 chicks sticking their head out the door. Now this picture is very grainy because I took this picture like at about 9 o'clock, just as the sun had substantially set. So I had my camera on a tripod, a very high ISO setting, wide open. So that's why it's grainy, but very interesting. That's the end of the barn owl segment. Any questions? Next one.
Len, this is Jean. I do have a question. So if I'm just walking and I can see those different houses, is there any way for me to tell just by walking by that one of them is occupied? Several detritus on the ground? Is there stuff on the ground or anything that would indicate?
Well, that's a good idea. Look at the ground. If there are a lot of pellets on the ground, yeah, they're up there, but it could be that they're just coughing their pellets up inside the house too. There's no way you can really know. But those houses that are in the southeastern portion of Ellis Creek are more likely to have owls in them than the others are, because those houses are near a tree line, and the owls appreciate those houses much more than those that are in the wide open spaces where they can't fly off to get shelter.
Len, do you have any idea what the success rate has been with the new boxes that have been put up around town? There's some that are out by the airport and various other parks have them now. Are they getting owls in them?
Lucchese, I don't know. I really want to know, but I guess they are not cleaning them out. Or if they aren't telling us. But I want to know what's happening there so I can compare their results to what we're having at Ellis Creek, where we do know. And we're going to find out. We're going to find out. It's too late to get on their case now about cleaning out the houses because the houses hopefully are being occupied now. So they shouldn't be bothering them. But we'll get those houses cleaned out, or we're going to find out what's in them come next October, or this coming October. The last subject, salinity testing. This is something new we started at John Shrib's instigation about 5 months ago. Linda Shepard is the lead on this, and she reports to John with her results. And anyway, we're determining the level of the dissolved salt in the three different water sources at Schollenberger. One of those sources is the central pond, another is the right side channel, and the other is down by Adobe Creek, where the tidal water comes up at high tide. We take samples from those three locations and look at them through various instruments, and we record what we are finding insofar as salinity levels. So different aquatic organisms require different salinity levels in order to survive. Fresh water, for example, has 0.5 parts per thousand or less, whereas seawater has a salt level of 30 parts per thousand. So what affects it here at Schollenberger? Well, the tides. Now, the tide does not affect the central pond, but it does affect the tidal marsh on the east side. Also, urban runoff when it rains, or rural runoff, storms, sewerage, agricultural sources. All of those can bring in debris, fertilizers that are going to affect the salinity of the water. Now, here is Linda on the right and Amy Heslop. Is Amy in our audience? John?
No, not today.
He's not. Oh, darn. Too bad. Anyway, and Amy is going to be getting a sample of water here from the central pond. This must have been around August or so. Well, look where she's walking out there. She's sunk into the mud up to her ankle. And here she is out of the water, but look at her shoes. Look real close. Now, I don't know who other than Amy would have done this. And of course, she didn't anticipate this happening to this degree when she walked out there, but she's a real trooper, as is Linda. And here's Linda looking through one of our instruments to determine salinity levels. And this is really interesting what you'll see in the scope, as you can tell from the next image of Amy. Look how excited she is. And I think that's my last slide. That's the end of this presentation. But it's the beginning of a busy monitoring season coming up. Any questions?
Yeah, Len, are you a professional scientist, biologist?
Professional amateur. Amateur. No, this is all just fun and interesting
You're doing great.
I just want to say thank you very much. This is really incredible. This is Suzanne. Thank you so much for leading this and sharing your knowledge with other people.